Hi, my name's Isaac. Probably know me as Blue Roux. So obviously I run this channel to kind of upload and preserve pretty much all kinds of music. Whatever isn't online already and that I usually just happen to stumble across at thrift stores. And I've been doing that for a while, but I've wanted for a second to kind of talk about how I got to where I am musically, and kind of how my collecting tastes have evolved. And I don't know, just give you the whole story from front to back here. So right now in the background, I don't remember where I put it. I have playing Christine Plays It Hot. A cool little private press thing, really kitschy, but it's just all organ covers with a really nice, percussion backing band, whatever you want to call it. And I do have that one up, and it's a pretty good one. I listen to it a lot. So, to start from the beginning, way back in the day when I was a kid, my dad raised me on a lot of reggae, a lot of punk, stuff like The Clash, Big Youth, Black Flag, stuff like that. And then my mom did a lot of Mexican music, like Cornelio Reina, stuff like that. So growing up, I would, probably like a lot of people my age, I played the PlayStation 2 a lot, so I had like all the Tony Hawk games. I had Guitar Hero, stuff like that, Grand Theft Auto 2. And so all of the music from those games kind of became a lot of the music that I knew growing up. And it's a lot of what I would listen to. A lot of times when I was just sitting at home as a kid, I would put in a Tony Hawk game and just put on the soundtrack and listen to it in the background. And so for a long time, that's what my music was kind of just whatever was on like my dad's old iPod or the video games that I played. As I grew older, and obviously, started to have a concept of money and be able to earn money and save money, and spend money. The first record that I bought, I believe I was in sophomore year of high school, so I was about 14, something like that. I have it right here. It was, I guess I'll just show you, Boogie with Canned Heat. It's their second album. This is the abridged version from the 80s, I believe, so it does not have Turpentine Moan, I think it is, and then Fried Hockey Boogie is like cut in half. This is my cat, by the way. She loves records. So this was the first record that I owned, and how I got from stuff like punk and reggae into late 60s blues was I had an electronics teacher in the 8th grade, and we were doing some sort of test, and he put on music in the background, and one of the songs that just came on, I think he did it on YouTube, it was Going Up the Country by Canned Heat. And the first time I heard it, it was kind of crazy, because I stopped whatever I was doing and I just listened to the song, and something about it just captivated me. From that point on, I developed a pretty good fixation on Canned Heat. I think I have all of their stuff up until like the mid 70s, and then a couple more throughout after. But it was mainly like Alan Wilson, and a lot of what he does got me into playing the harmonica, and then that got me into other blues, but a lot of the late 60s stuff, like Woodstock bands, like Monterey Pop stuff, like Association, Jimi Hendrix, obviously Janis Joplin. I started to get into them, but this, like I said, this was the first record that I bought, I think about 12 years ago now, something like that. And so I bought a bunch of Canned Heat. I started kind of building my collection, just buying cheap, dumb little 45s that were in horrible condition. Stuff that I don't have anymore because I probably threw it away. It was so bad. But from there, once I started to... This cat's going to walk right in front. Don't do that. Okay. Okay, all better. Excuse me. Okay, sorry about that. So anyways, once I started to get older, I went through high school. I got like part-time jobs and stuff like that. So now I actually had like a good amount of disposable income to go and buy records with, because that's what I was really into at the time, just like right now. So I would go to my local record store, and a lot of times on Discogs too. That was back when you can find really, really good deals still. So I started to kind of fall back on my punk roots, and I built up my Black Flag collection. I got all kinds of Descendant stuff. Just started buying a bunch of punk, and I was really into that for a while. And then kind of it's mainly because of a little bit of what my dad raised me with, and then some of the Tony Hawk games and stuff like that. I was exposed to jazz and funk a little bit. That's Life by Frank Sinatra was on Tony Hawk's Underground too. And then they had Champ by Breakistra on American Wasteland. So, and I was into those songs, they were fun. I started to get into jazz a little bit. I got a lot of Dave Brubeck stuff to begin with. This still is, I guess, one of my favorites. Time Further Out by Dave Brubeck. It doesn't have, his classic Take 5, which is great. I love that song. But kind of just the weird... I mean, it's like traditional jazz, right? They don't get funky. They don't get really free with it. But just all of the weird time signature changes was really cool to me. And I like the sound of the small combo. As opposed to a lot of the jazz that I was sort of familiar with was like big band, Frank Sinatra stuff back in the day. I like this stuff a little bit more. So I got into this, and that's kind of where it really started to kick off for me. So how it all started to go was, it's kind of a weird thing. A lot of my branching out from, the very basic jazz, like this Brubeck stuff, it all happened because of like YouTube autoplay, essentially. So I was listening to, I'm pretty sure it was Take 5 one day, I believe when I was still back in high school. And it auto-played something right after, which is this that I got right here. That popped up. And like I said, I was sort of into funk music. I had like a little bit, a lot of the rap that I used to listen to, still listen to. On the Tony Hawk games, obviously they sample a lot of jazz and a lot of jazz funk, so I was like sonically kind of familiar with it. I could get down with it. But Chameleon by Herbie Hancock, off of the album Headhunters here, popped up when I was just listening to some Dave Brubeck or whatever. And it was also pretty insane, because I had really never heard anything like that. I'd never really listened to standalone funk stuff, jazz funk, whatever you want to call it. Chameleon itself, how punchy the riff is when you've never heard it before, and it just comes on, like it caught my ear. Obviously, it was great. And then I sat there for 15 minutes and just listened to them rip on this song, and it was transformative. That's kind of what got me into everything else. Because from here, I got this copy actually at the Record Exchange in Boise, back when they were selling stuff for $6. I mean, the cover's kind of beat, but the record is in great shape. So back in the day, when records were a little bit cheap still. From there, from jazz funk, I started getting into all of the weirder stuff. And what was really nice at the time was that kind of right out of high school, I started to work at a thrift store. So I saw a bunch of records come in. I kind of had first pick on a lot of this stuff. And this was also the time that I started to get into reselling records, CDs and stuff, trying to look for stuff to flip. So what ended up happening was, by working in that thrift store, I bought a bunch of records that I wanted to flip eventually. And most of them I did end up flipping. Some of them I kind of just never got around to it. I think I I stowed them away on the shelf, and I was like, okay, you know, I'll have to list that later whenever I get time. And I never had time, or I just lost it in my little stack that I had at the time. So one of the things that I got, because it was valuable at the time and is still valuable now, is this fella. I hated this record because it sounded like elevator music to me, and this was when I was like really into Headhunters. So if it wasn't like funky and crazy like that one is, if it was just kind of like, you know, vibes and whatever, I was not really into it. So I meant to sell this. It's not in the best shape, so I kind of didn't really feel comfortable selling it at the time. So I ended up hanging on to it, and now I have a bunch of his stuff because I got into salsa. I'm into salsa right now, and so a lot of his earlier stuff is very Latin influenced, and some of it's pretty funky. So very stoked that I forgot to sell that. Another one that I have right here, I found this one morning digging through the stacks. That's Sun Bear at my work at the thrift store. And I think at the time it was going for like 50 or 60 bucks. And I got it for like $9. I don't remember if I still have the tag on it. Probably not. Yeah, I got it for like 9 or 10 bucks. I was gonna sell it. I was listening to it and I was like, okay, it's funky, but it's a little more disco than I was into. I was really, really picky back in the day. I just set it on the shelf and I just did nothing with it. I was like, I'll get to it kind of whenever I get to it, and I'll sell it and I'll be like 50 bucks richer, whatever. Never ended up doing that, and incredibly grateful I did. It has been reissued, thankfully. But the fact that I have an original just because I ran across it at work one day and it sort of just got lost in the stacks and, you know, survived until I could really appreciate it, was crazy. And I hate to think back in the day when I was looking through dollar bins and stuff like that, because I'm really into private press stuff now. And a lot of that stuff, if you're not looking for it, you just flip right past it because it looks like trash. It looks like all the other thrift store fodder. You know what I mean? So from jazz, I started getting into Blue Notes and stuff, which is a very expensive place to be. This is Donald Byrd Fancy Free. I don't know if it's an original, but it's a very early pressing. I found this in Mountain Home at a thrift store, and that was my first Blue Note. And Blue Notes like this, I hit a rash of them for like a year or two. I was scoring. I got Let 'Em Roll by Big John Patton. I traded some other collector. I had like a Led Zeppelin 3 box set that I had found, so I traded him for this and a bunch of other stuff. I went to go buy, I believe it was this record from a lady, Freeform by Donald Byrd. This guy's an original. Really cute. I went to go buy this off of her because she had it up for $25, which was like crazy. And then she had a whole other box that she gave me for like an additional 20 bucks. And in there was this Art Blakey. Very cool stuff. So just because I was kind of in the right place at the right time at the moment, all of this stuff I was really into it, so I was looking it up and I was getting all of these names in my head. Then I can go out and look for them, and I just happened to stumble across a lot of them. And it's kind of dried up as far as that goes, locally at least for me. But anyways, to continue the little journey, because there's more to go. I'll put that there. Again, one day on YouTube, I was just listening to Headhunters, and auto-played right after that was No Condition is Permanent by Marihata. I don't know if that's how you say it. Amazing African funk. This obviously isn't an original, or else I'd be broke probably. It's a Mr. Bongo reissue. But just super nasty, like hot funk. Like they are almost tearing that tape apart, you know? Beautiful. So that caught me, and a lot like the Headhunters, it was just so raw and mean, and I'd never heard anything like it before, that I got hooked instantly. From here, I think like right after that as well, auto played My Love and Music by Ebo Taylor. This, I don't know how to pronounce it. It's Odofo ni Akiri Biara, whatever. It's like the 14-minute long song on this album. And it reminds me a lot of Headhunters here, because it's just a really long piece, everybody has a little solo, and it's just crazy funky front to back. So I got really into these two. Pat Thomas did a lot of work with Ebo Taylor. I ended up seeing both of them live in Portland in May on like their last tour. Yeah, it was in May. On their last tour that they were doing. Which is amazing, because when I found these guys, I thought there's no way they're already like, at this point they were like Ebo was like pushing 80. I think he was past 80 at that point. But I was like, there's no way they're gonna fly all the way out here to my little corner of the world and play somewhere where I can see them. But they did, so that was insane. From here, I got really into Afrofunk. And that stuff is still cool and all, but I've sort of moved away from that, and I'm getting really into high life. So much into high life that it kind of sucks, because there's not a ton of reissues out there. And so a lot of there's some good compilations. Soundway has a few good ones, but a lot of the reissues, they're good, but a lot of the really deep stuff, you kind of can't listen to unless somebody has already put it up online, or unless you have a copy, which I'm probably not going to run across copies like that just out of the blue. At the same time that I was getting really into funk and, reggae and African stuff, whatever, I was starting to get into Latin music too. I had grown up kind of knowing what cumbia was a little bit, but I had never really gotten into it. So there was two things that sort of set me on the Latin path for salsa, whatever. Quantic, his DJ mixes, his Mellotron DJ mix where he's on this boat, and then his New York Times Square, I think he did a few mixes for that. That got me really, really, really into salsa and cumbia, because he did a lot of work, doing cumbia and salsa, stuff like that. He's kind of moved away from that now, which sucks because I'm not really into his new stuff. So that hooked me a little bit. And then I went out to a town about 45 minutes from here, and I went to this junk shop, where it's one of those places where they just kind of have like a warehouse, and they have a bunch of stuff just strewn about everywhere. And I went in there and I found this guy, Aina Ma by La Diferente. That's Rafi Val. Early 70s, really, really just classic like New York salsa. I found this and I played it, and it's in rough shape, but it was one of those things where it reminds me a lot of African music. It reminds me a lot of just some of the Latin jazz I have, obviously, because it's, kind of a distillation of that, I suppose you would say. But from here, I got really, really into salsa. And with Quantic, I had a lot of jumping off points from his mixes. For example, he played Si Echo Pa'lante by this fella, Agustin Arce. It was Puerto Rican jazz, salsa. This is a bootleg, obviously. I wish I had the original, but I don't. I got into a lot of, Willie Colon, stuff like that, Inca Records. Very, very fun stuff. And so that's kind of where I'm sitting right now as far as things that, reissues that I'm actively looking for. It's like the first bins that I check when I go to pretty much any record store is the World section, just to see what they have. It's crazy. It's crazy the amount of stuff out there that back in the day I would have flipped right past it. not because I couldn't buy it, but just because it meant nothing to me. And so going from there, the the place that I'm at now, as far as the channel and the stuff that I upload, most of it obviously is private press, kind of harder to find stuff, a lot of demo tapes, a lot of like small name bands, people that never really made it anywhere beyond the CD. A lot of that stuff is what I end up looking for now when I go to thrift stores, especially, just because there's so much little stuff out there. Like there's little high school band records, there's, like I said, just weird, like grandma's records like this that back in the day I would not even think about looking at. But now I'm looking at a lot of this stuff, and a lot of it is sort of lost almost, if that makes sense. Just because it's not online, it's not easily accessible unless you have a copy like this, you know what I mean? So, and that goes for a lot of the demo tapes as well, as if you don't have like that one tape, as far as I know, or maybe it's a few tapes, if you don't have that one physical piece of media, you're not going to be able to listen to that music at all. So that's why I like uploading stuff and kind of preserving it, archiving it, making sure that it doesn't just rot away in somebody's attic or doesn't get thrown out by a thrift store at some point. And the thing is, I'm not a religious guy, but a lot of just because of the nature of private press and kind of the area where I'm at, a lot of it tends to be gospel stuff, Christian, which is cool. But again, back in the day, I would have flipped past Christian stuff so fast because I was a punk guy. It's not Black Flag, it's the furthest you could be from any of that stuff. I wanted nothing to do with it. But now I have entire like Calyx cubes, like these guys here, full of Christian music. And it's great. And some of my favorite records now are Christian records. And, of course, I don't listen to them for the message. I get, like, it's cool if you do. But just the caliber of musicianship on some of these records that really got nowhere is insane. And you wouldn't know it unless you picked it up and you put it on a turntable. So that's it. That's kind of all of the points that I wanted to hit. I think it's fun. It's a little bit crazy to look back on how one track of a mind that I had when it came to music and what was good and what was worth buying, to the point where now I'll pretty much buy whatever and check it out because it's all good. So yeah, I've been toying around doing stuff like this, thinking about it, talking to the camera about stuff because I have some stuff that I like to talk about, but not really a ton of people to talk about it to that would care enough to sit through it. So I appreciate you for sitting through this and listening to me ramble. And if you liked it, let me know. If you would listen to it again or, hear me talk about other stuff. I've been thinking about doing maybe like a weekly thing where I go through just kind of what I found for the week, thrift stores, record stores, or whatever. So yeah, if if it goes well, I'll do that. It's fun stuff. Little change of pace. It's nice. Cool. Thank you, and goodbye.